The morning sun was just rising over New York City when the sky changed forever. Captain Jake Morrison was drinking his coffee aboard the USS Defender, floating 300 miles above Earth, when his radar operator shouted across the bridge, "Sir, we have massive contacts appearing over every major city on the planet." Jake dropped his coffee cup and rushed to the main screen. What he saw made his blood run cold. Enormous ships, each the size of a small city, hung silently in the air above London, Tokyo, Moscow, and dozens of other population centers. The vessels were beautiful in a strange way, made of what looked like crystal and metal twisted together in impossible shapes. "Get me Admiral Brooks at Pentagon immediately," Jake ordered. But before his communications officer could respond, every screen on Earth began showing the same image. A tall, thin creature appeared on monitors worldwide. It looked almost human, but its skin was pale blue and seemed to shimmer like water. Its eyes were large and golden, and when it spoke, its voice was calm and musical. "People of Earth," the alien said, "I am High Counselor Velnara of the Zephyrian Collective. We come to you in peace, with an offer of protection." Down in the Pentagon, Dr. Lisa Ford stopped her work in the xenobiology lab. She had spent years studying the possibility of alien life, but she never expected it to look so perfect. Something about the creature's appearance bothered her, though she could not say what. "We know this must be frightening," Velnara continued. "Your world is young, and you have not yet learned of the dangers that exist among the stars. There are creatures out there called the Void Hunters. They travel from world to world, consuming everything they find. They destroyed our home planet 200 years ago." The alien paused, and somehow Jake could sense sadness in its golden eyes. But something felt wrong. Jake had been in the military for 20 years, and his instincts were telling him to be careful. "We survived because we learned to fight back," Velnara explained. "Now we travel the galaxy, protecting younger civilizations from the same fate that nearly destroyed us. We offer our protection to Earth, freely given, with no price asked in return." In a secure bunker beneath Cheyenne Mountain, Lieutenant Commander Ben Hayes was not watching the broadcast. He was studying his instruments, which were picking up strange energy readings from the alien ships. The readings did not match what he would expect from defensive vessels. "These ships are not just sitting there," Ben muttered to himself. "They are scanning everything. Our cities, our military bases, our resource deposits." He began recording the data, though he was not sure yet what it all meant. Back on the global broadcast, Velnara was showing images of destroyed worlds. Planets that were nothing but burned rocks floating in space. Cities turned to ash. It was horrible to see. "This is what the Void Hunters do," the alien said. "But you do not need to fear them. We have placed our ships in defensive positions around your world. Our technology is far beyond what the Hunters possess. They will not be able to reach you while we stand guard." The world leaders began responding quickly. Most seemed grateful for the offer of protection. The President of the United States appeared, on television within an hour, thanking the aliens for their kindness. The Prime Minister of Britain said it was the greatest day in human history. Leaders from around the world echoed the same message of gratitude, but not everyone was convinced. Jake Morrison floated in his ship above Earth, watching the alien vessels through his telescope. Something was bothering him about their positions. They were not placed where he would put defensive ships. Instead, they seemed to be positioned to watch major population centers and important military installations. Dr. Ford was having similar thoughts in her lab. She had requested biological data from the aliens, claiming it would help humans understand their new protectors better. When the data arrived, she noticed something strange. The Zephyrians claimed to be from a planet with high radiation levels, but their biology showed adaptations for a world very similar to Earth. "That does not make sense," Lisa whispered to herself as she studied the alien genetic codes. "Why would a species from a high-radiation world be so perfectly adapted for Earth-like conditions?" Days passed, and the alien ships remained in the sky. The Zephyrians began offering gifts to humanity: advanced medical technology that could cure cancer and heart disease, clean energy systems that could power entire cities without pollution, water purification systems that could turn any liquid into pure, clean water. The world celebrated. Stock markets soared as people realized that humanity's greatest problems might soon be solved. Children looked up at the alien ships with wonder instead of fear. It seemed like a golden age was beginning. But in secret locations around the world, a small group of military officers and scientists began meeting. Jake Morrison flew down from his ship to attend one such meeting in a secured room deep beneath the Pentagon. "I do not trust them," Jake said simply. "Their ship positions are all wrong for defense. They are positioned to control us, not protect us." Dr. Ford nodded agreement. "Their biology does not match their story either. These aliens are not from the world they claim to be from." Ben Hayes had brought his energy readings. "Look at these scans," he said, spreading the data across the table. "These ships are not just defensive. They are scanning our entire planet, mapping every resource, every military installation, every major population center. This is not the behavior of protectors. This is the behavior of an invasion force gathering intelligence." The small group looked at each other with growing concern. If they were right, then humanity had just welcomed its conquerors with open arms. But they needed more proof before they could convince anyone else. As the meeting ended, Jake looked up at the ceiling, knowing that somewhere far above, alien ships were watching and waiting. He made a silent promise to himself and to all humanity. If these aliens were not what they claimed to be, he would find out the truth. And if they meant harm to Earth, he would make them regret ever coming to his world. The protection of Earth had begun. But perhaps the question was not whether the aliens could protect humanity from the Void Hunters. Perhaps the real question was who would protect the aliens from humanity. 3 months had passed since the Zephyrians arrived, and Earth had changed in ways both wonderful and troubling. Major Kate Sullivan stood on the roof of the Pentagon, looking up at the alien monitoring station that now floated directly above the building. The Zephyrians claimed it was an early warning system to detect incoming Void Hunter ships, but Kate had her doubts. She was not alone in those doubts. Every major city on Earth now had one of these monitoring stations hovering overhead. They were positioned over population centers, military bases, and important resource locations. If Kate wanted to place spy satellites to watch a planet, this is exactly where she would put them. Down in her laboratory, Dr. Lisa Ford was making a discovery that chilled her to the bone. For weeks, she had been studying the medical technology the aliens had given to humanity. The devices could heal injuries that would have been fatal just months ago, and they worked like magic. But Lisa had found something hidden inside them. "Every single device contains microscopic trackers," she whispered to her assistant, Dr. Paul Carter. "Every person who has been treated with Zephyrian medical technology now carries these trackers in their bloodstream." Paul looked shocked. "How many people are we talking about?" Lisa checked her computer files. "Over 50 million people worldwide. Anyone who has been to a hospital in the last 3 months has likely been tagged. The aliens know exactly where these people are at all times." She tried to send this information to government officials, but something strange happened. Her emails disappeared before they could be delivered. Her phone calls were cut short. It was as if someone was watching her communications and stopping her from sharing what she had learned. Meanwhile, Captain Jake Morrison had returned to space aboard his ship, but this time he was not just orbiting Earth. He had convinced his superiors to let him take a small fleet on a deep space reconnaissance mission. They told everyone it was a training exercise, but Jake had a different purpose. He was looking for the Void Hunters. What Jake found instead was far more disturbing. In the asteroid belt beyond Mars, he discovered the wreckage of ships that the Zephyrians had shown as evidence of Void Hunter attacks. But when his science team examined the wreckage, they found something unexpected. "Sir," his science officer, Lieutenant Danny Brooks, reported, "these ships were not destroyed by the creatures the aliens described to us. The damage patterns match Zephyrian weapons technology." Jake felt his stomach drop. "Are you saying the Zephyrians destroyed these ships themselves?" "That is exactly what I am saying, sir. And there is more. We found similar wreckage at 3 other locations. All of it shows the same weapon signatures. The Zephyrians have been destroying ships and then blaming it on these Void Hunters." Back on Earth, Colonel Ryan Peters was making his own disturbing discovery. As head of military communications, he had noticed that certain messages were not reaching their destinations. Any communication that expressed doubt about the Zephyrians or suggested resistance was mysteriously lost in transmission. Ryan began testing the system carefully. He sent a message praising the aliens and it went through immediately. Then he sent a message questioning their motives and it vanished without a trace. The aliens were reading and filtering all of humanity's military communications. The Zephyrians had also begun making what they called small requests for humanity's continued protection. They asked for certain mining operations to be moved to different locations. They requested access to research facilities working on advanced technology. They wanted human military exercises to be conducted under their supervision. When government leaders asked why these things were necessary, High Counselor Velnara always had the same answer. These measures are required for your protection. We have experience with the void hunters that you do not possess. You must trust us. But some humans were beginning to trust less and less. Jake Morrison had arranged a secret meeting with the others who shared his suspicions. They met in an abandoned subway tunnel beneath New York City, far from any alien monitoring stations. Present were Lisa Ford, Kate Sullivan, Ben Hayes, Ryan Peters, and a few others who had noticed disturbing patterns. The evidence is clear, Jake said quietly. These aliens are not our protectors. They are studying us, controlling us, and preparing us for something. But what? Lisa shared her discovery about the medical trackers. Kate explained how the monitoring stations were positioned like control points rather than defensive systems. Ryan described the communication filtering. Ben showed energy readings that suggested the alien ships were not just defensive vessels, but were equipped for planetary occupation. We need more proof, Kate said. The world leaders will not believe us based on suspicions alone. We need solid evidence of what the Zephyrians really want. It was then that Ben Hayes shared his most disturbing discovery. I have been monitoring alien communications, he said. They do not know I can intercept their signals, but I have been learning their language. Last week, I translated a message that will change everything. The others leaned forward, waiting. The message was from High Counselor Velnara to someone called the Harvest Fleet Commander. The message said, Resource World Designation Earth 3 is proceeding according to plan. Population is compliant and tagged. Recommend beginning Phase 2 within 6 months. Estimated yield, 7 billion units plus mineral extraction. The silence in the tunnel was complete. Finally, Lisa spoke in a whisper. Units. They are calling human beings units. Jake felt anger rising in his chest. They are not protecting us. They are preparing to harvest us. But harvest us for what? Ryan asked. Ben had more translations. From what I can understand, they use other species as biological resources. They take people from their home planets and use them as workers, as test subjects, and as raw materials for their technology. They have done this to dozens of civilizations. Kate Sullivan, who had been quiet during this exchange, finally spoke. Then we need to stop them. But how do we fight an enemy with technology so far beyond our own? Jake Morrison smiled for the first time in months, but it was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a predator who had just realized he was stronger than his prey. We do what humans have always done when faced with a superior enemy, Jake said. We adapt, we learn, we find their weaknesses, and then we show them that protecting Earth was the worst mistake they ever made. The small group of humans began making plans. They would need to work in secret, using communication methods the aliens could not intercept. They would need to gather more intelligence about Zephyrian technology and weaknesses. Most importantly, they would need to convince the world's governments that humanity's supposed protectors were actually its greatest threat. As the meeting ended and the conspirators prepared to leave, Dr. Ford had one final thought. You know, she said, they made one very big mistake when they chose to target humanity. What mistake was that? Jake asked. Lisa smiled grimly. They assumed that a young civilization would be weak and easy to control. They do not realize that humans became the dominant species on Earth not because we were the strongest, but because we were the most dangerous. Every other species on our planet learned to fear us. Now it is time to teach that same lesson to the Zephyrians. Above them, the alien monitoring stations continued their silent watch over humanity. But below the surface, a resistance was forming. And the Zephyrians, for all their advanced technology, had no idea what was coming for them. The secret meeting took place 2 miles beneath the Colorado mountains, in a facility that officially did not exist. Jake Morrison followed General Amy Rodriguez through corridors that had been carved from solid rock decades before the Zephyrians ever arrived. The walls were lined with a strange metal that seemed to shimmer in the artificial light. This facility was built during the Cold War, General Rodriguez explained as they walked. But we have been improving it for years with technology that most people do not know we possess. Jake was confused. What kind of technology? The general smiled. The kind that came from visitors who arrived long before the Zephyrians. We have been reverse engineering alien technology for 70 years, Captain. Did you really think the HFY Zephyrians were our first contact with extraterrestrial life? They entered a massive underground chamber filled with activity. Hundreds of scientists and engineers worked at stations filled with equipment Jake had never seen before. In one corner, technicians were working on devices that looked similar to Zephyrian technology, but somehow different. Welcome to Project Looking Glass, General Rodriguez said. This is where we have been preparing for the day when humanity would face a real alien threat. Dr. Lisa Ford was already there, along with the other members of their resistance group, but they were not alone. Jake recognized faces from around the world, military officers, scientists, and government officials from dozens of countries. You mean the world governments have known about the Zephyrians all along? Jake asked. We suspected, the general replied. When they arrived claiming to protect us from the Void Hunters, we ran a check on our deep space monitoring systems. Those systems are based on technology we recovered from crashed alien ships over the years. What we found was very interesting. She led Jake to a large display screen showing star charts. The Void Hunters were real, but they stopped being active in this part of the galaxy over 50 years ago. The Zephyrians destroyed them, but they did not stop there. They began attacking other civilizations and using the same story about protection to take control of planets. Jake stared at the display. How many worlds have they taken? 47 that we know of. Each time, they arrive claiming to offer protection from a threat that no longer exists. They gain the trust of the local population, establish monitoring and control systems, and then begin what they call harvesting operations. Dr. Ford joined them at the display. I have been working with the biological warfare team, she said. The Zephyrians may have advanced technology, but their biology has weaknesses we can exploit. She showed Jake images of Zephyrian cellular structure. Their crystalline biology makes them vulnerable to specific electromagnetic frequencies. We have developed weapons that can disrupt their nervous systems and even cause their ships to malfunction. In another part of the facility, Jake met Commander Alex Turner, who was leading a team of special operations soldiers. They were training, with equipment that looked like it came from a science fiction movie. We have been preparing for this fight for months, Alex explained. While the world thought we were cooperating with the aliens, we were actually studying their technology and finding ways to defeat it. Alex showed Jake a weapon that looked like a normal rifle, but glowed with blue energy. This weapon fires electromagnetic pulses tuned to disrupt Zephyrian biology. It will not kill them instantly, but it will disable them long enough for us to capture or eliminate them. The most impressive part of the facility was the spacecraft hangar. Jake walked among dozens of ships that looked like combinations of human and alien technology. They were sleek and fast, with weapon systems that seemed both familiar and completely advanced. We have been building these for 5 years, General Rodriguez explained, using technology recovered from various crashed alien vessels and combined with human engineering. These ships are specifically designed to fight Zephyrian vessels. Jake ran his hand along the hull of one of the ships. How many do we have? 300 completed, with more being finished every day. We have similar fleets hidden in facilities around the world. When the time comes, we will be able to launch a coordinated strike that the Zephyrians will never see coming. But the most important discovery came from Ben Hayes, who had been working with a team of cryptographers and linguists to decode more Zephyrian communications. What they found changed everything. The harvest operation is scheduled to begin in 6 weeks, Ben reported to the gathered resistance leaders. They plan to use a biological agent to make most of the human population compliant and easy to control. Then they will begin removing people from the planet in groups of several million at a time. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. General Rodriguez was the first to speak. Then we move in 5 weeks. Operation Prometheus goes live on my command. Over the following weeks, final preparations were made in secret. Around the world, human military forces prepared for a battle that most of them did not even know was coming. Special weapons were distributed to key units. Ships were moved into position. Scientists finalized their biological warfare agents. Dr. Ford's team had developed something particularly clever. They had created a computer virus that could be transmitted through the same networks the Zephyrians used to monitor human communications. When activated, the virus would turn the aliens' own surveillance systems against them, feeding them false information while allowing humans to coordinate their attacks. Colonel Ryan Peters had solved the communication problem by developing a quantum encryption system that operated on frequencies the aliens could not detect. This allowed the resistance to coordinate globally without the Zephyrians knowing what was being planned. The night before the operation was scheduled to begin, Jake stood in the hangar looking at his ship. It was painted black and silver, with weapons that could punch through Zephyrian shields and engines that could outrun anything in their fleet. General Rodriguez joined him. "Are you ready for this, Captain?" Jake nodded. "I have been ready since the day they arrived. The question is whether they are ready for us." "They are not," the general said with certainty. "They have made the same mistake that many of humanity's enemies have made throughout history. They assumed that because we appeared primitive compared to them, we would be easy to defeat. They have no idea what humans are capable of when we are fighting for our survival." As dawn approached, military units around the world received coded messages that meant only one thing. It was time to show the Zephyrians that they had chosen the wrong planet to harvest. The aliens had spent months studying human military capabilities and had concluded that Earth's defenses were no match for their advanced technology. They had observed human weapons and dismissed them as primitive. They had analyzed human tactics and found them crude compared to their own sophisticated strategies. But the Zephyrians had made one critical error in their analysis. They had studied the military capabilities that humans wanted them to see, while the real preparations had been happening in facilities they did not even know existed. In a few hours, High Counselor Velnara and his fellow aliens would learn that humans had been playing a much deeper game than they ever imagined. They would discover that their supposed victims had been preparing for war from the moment the Zephyrian ships appeared in Earth's sky. Most importantly, they would learn why humanity had become the dominant species on a planet filled with creatures bigger, stronger, and more naturally dangerous than they were. It was not because humans were the most powerful species on Earth. It was because humans were the most cunning, the most adaptable, and when threatened, the most ruthless species that evolution had ever produced. The Zephyrians were about to receive an education in human warfare that they would never forget, assuming any of them survived long enough to remember it. High Counselor Velnara stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking down at the blue world below. Today was supposed to be a celebration. The humans were gathering in their major cities to honor their Zephyrian protectors in a ceremony called Unity Day. It would be the perfect opportunity to begin Phase 2 of the harvest operation. "All monitoring stations report normal activity," his communications officer reported. "The humans appear to be celebrating as expected." Velnara allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. The humans had been so easy to control. Their primitive minds could not conceive of the deception that had been practiced against them. Soon, they would begin the biological compliance process, and Earth would join the long list of worlds that served the Zephyrian collective. In New York City, millions of humans had gathered in Central Park for the celebration. Giant screens showed images of Zephyrian technology and the destroyed worlds they claimed to have saved humanity from. Children held balloons and flags with alien symbols on them. It was a perfect picture of a grateful population honoring their protectors. But something was different about this celebration. General Amy Rodriguez stood on a platform with other world leaders, smiling and waving at the crowd. What the Zephyrians could not see was the small device in her hand, a device that would change everything. At exactly noon, General Rodriguez pressed a button. Around the world, the celebration became something entirely different. The first sign that something was wrong came from the Zephyrian monitoring station floating above the Pentagon. Major Kate Sullivan, now wearing a military exoskeleton powered by reverse-engineered alien technology, fired a weapon that sent a pulse of electromagnetic energy directly into the station's core. The station's crystalline structure began to vibrate, then crack, then shatter completely. Pieces of alien technology rained down on Washington, D.C. as the first Zephyrian installation was destroyed. But Kate was not alone. Across the planet, similar attacks were happening simultaneously. In London, Paris, Tokyo, Moscow, and dozens of other cities, human military forces emerged from hidden positions and began systematically destroying every Zephyrian installation on Earth. The aliens' own monitoring systems, which they had relied on to watch humanity, had been turned against them by Dr. Ford's computer virus. Instead of showing them what was really happening, their screens showed peaceful celebrations continuing normally. High Counselor Velnara was studying reports of the celebration when his ship suddenly shuddered violently. "What was that?" he demanded. His weapons officer looked confused at his instruments. "Sir, we are under attack, but that is impossible. Our shields show no incoming weapons fire." The officer did not understand that the weapons hitting his ship were specifically designed to pass through Zephyrian shields. Dr. Ford's biological warfare team had created electromagnetic pulses that treated the aliens' energy barriers as if they did not exist. Captain Jake Morrison sat in the cockpit of his fighter, leading a formation of 50 human ships as they swarmed around the massive Zephyrian flagship. His weapons, designed specifically to exploit weaknesses in alien technology, tore through their hull as if it were made of paper. "All squadrons, this is Phoenix Leader." Jake's voice crackled over the radio. "Remember, these ships are big, but they are not as tough as they look. Hit them with everything we have got." The space battle was brief but devastating. The Zephyrians had designed their ships to fight the primitive spacecraft they expected humans to possess. They were not prepared for vessels that combined human, tactical thinking with advanced alien technology. Lieutenant Sarah Brooks, piloting an experimental fighter equipped with a prototype weapon system, found herself facing the flagship's main cannon. The weapon was charging up to fire on the human fleet, but Sarah had other plans. She dove her small ship directly toward the cannon's barrel, firing a focused electromagnetic beam that Dr. Ford had told her would cause a feedback loop in the weapon's power system. The cannon began to glow brighter and brighter, then exploded in a flash of light that could be seen from Earth's surface. The explosion tore a massive hole in the flagship's hull. Velnara was thrown across his bridge as emergency systems began failing throughout his ship. "Get me a damage report," he shouted. "Sir," his engineer replied, "main power is failing, weapons are offline, and we have hull breaches on 17 decks. How are the humans doing this? Their technology should be no match for ours." But the space battle was only part of the human assault. On the ground, Commander Alex Turner led Special Forces teams in attacks against Zephyrian facilities that the aliens thought were secret. The humans had been watching and learning for months, mapping every alien installation on the planet. Alex's team moved through a Zephyrian research facility like ghosts, their equipment allowing them to see in the dark and move silently through corridors filled with alien technology. The Zephyrians inside the facility never knew they were under attack until it was too late. "Package delivered," Alex reported over his secure radio as explosive charges destroyed the facility's main computer core. Moving to secondary target. The biological weapons that Dr. Ford had developed proved to be the most effective part of the assault. The Zephyrians' crystalline biology, which made them so beautiful and advanced, also made them vulnerable to specific frequencies that human technology could generate. When the weapons were activated, every Zephyrian on Earth began experiencing what could only be described as the worst headache in galactic history. Their telepathic network, which normally allowed them to coordinate perfectly, became a source of agony as the pain was shared among all of them. Colonel Ryan Peters, now commanding the global communication networks, watched as the aliens' coordination completely fell apart. "All units, the enemy command structure is down," he broadcast. "They cannot coordinate their defenses. Press the attack." High Counselor Velnara, bleeding blue blood from multiple cuts caused by his ship's destruction, managed to send an emergency signal to the hidden Zephyrian fleet waiting beyond Earth's solar system. The message was simple: send help. Humans more dangerous than anticipated. Harvest operation has failed. But even this message was intercepted by Ben Hayes, who had been monitoring alien communications from his position in the Cheyenne Mountain facility. "Admiral Morrison," Ben transmitted to Jake's ship, "the aliens have called for reinforcements. We have maybe 6 hours before a much larger fleet arrives." Jake looked at the burning wreckage of Zephyrian ships floating around Earth and smiled grimly. "Then we had better be ready for them." As the last of the alien installations on Earth were destroyed, General Rodriguez stood among the celebrating crowds in New York. The humans around her were no longer pretending to honor their alien protectors. They were celebrating their victory over would-be conquerors. A reporter pushed through the crowd and thrust a microphone toward the general. "How did you know the aliens were lying to us?" she asked. General Rodriguez looked up at the sky where pieces of destroyed alien ships were still falling like shooting stars and gave the answer that would be remembered throughout human history. "We have been fighting wars since before these. Aliens learned to fly," she said. "Did they really think we would trust creatures who offered free protection? Nothing in the universe is free, especially protection. We knew they wanted something from us. We just had to figure out what it was and how to stop them from taking it." The reporter pressed further. "But how were you able to defeat such advanced technology?" The general's smile was cold and proud. "Because they made the same mistake that every enemy of humanity has made throughout history. They assumed that primitive meant weak. They forgot that humans did not become the dominant species on Earth by being the strongest or the fastest. We became dominant by being the smartest, the most adaptable, and when necessary, the most ruthless species on the planet." Above them, Jake Morrison's voice came over the public address system from his ship in orbit. "Citizens of Earth, this is Admiral Morrison of the Earth Defense Fleet. The immediate threat has been eliminated, but more alien ships are coming. We will be ready for them too. Today, humanity has proven that we do not need protectors. We are our own protectors, and we are very good at it." As night fell on Earth, the planet was no longer under alien occupation. The Zephyrians had learned, too late, that humanity's apparent weakness had been carefully calculated deception. Now they would have to face the consequences of trying to harvest the wrong species. The real war was just beginning, and humanity was ready to show the galaxy why Earth had never been conquered by anyone, human or alien. 6 months after the defeat of the first Zephyrian fleet, Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Guardian, humanity's new flagship. Through the massive windows, he could see the construction of Earth's first orbital shipyard, where dozens of new vessels were being built using captured alien technology, combined with human engineering. "Admiral," his communications officer reported, "we are receiving a distress signal from the Kepler system. It appears to be from survivors of a Zephyrian harvest operation." Jake nodded. "Set course for Kepler. It is time to show these survivors that the galaxy has new protectors." The transformation of humanity had been remarkable. In just 6 months, Earth had gone from a primitive world hiding its true capabilities to a major galactic power. The secret facilities that had been preparing for the Zephyrian threat were now openly producing advanced spacecraft, weapons, and technology. Dr. Lisa Ford, now head of the Galactic Biology Institute, was leading expeditions to worlds that had been damaged by Zephyrian harvesting operations. Her team had developed techniques for restoring damaged ecosystems and helping survivor populations rebuild their civilizations. "The planet Zarian was harvested 15 years ago," she explained to her research team as their ship approached the dead world. "According to our intelligence, there may still be survivors hiding in underground facilities." When they landed on Zarian, They found a world that looked like the images the Zephyrians had shown of Void Hunter attacks. Cities were destroyed, forests were burned, and the oceans were poisoned. But Lisa's sensors detected life signs deep underground. The survivors they found were a species called the Talari, who had once been a proud and advanced civilization. When the humans entered their underground refuge, the Talari leaders approached them with fear in their eyes. "Are you another harvesting species?" asked Elder Keftar, the leader of the survivors. "We have nothing left to give." Dr. Ford removed her helmet and smiled gently. "We are humans from Earth. We are here to help you rebuild your world." Talari stared in disbelief. In their experience, advanced spacefaring species only came to take things, never to give help freely. Back in Earth's solar system, General Kate Sullivan was overseeing the training of new human military forces. The secret was out now. Humanity had always been a warrior species, and they were very good at it. "The key to defeating the Zephyrians," she explained to a class of new recruits, "is understanding that technology alone does not win wars. Tactics, strategy, and the will to fight are just as important as advanced weapons." The recruits were learning to use equipment that would have seemed like magic just a year ago. Personal shields, energy weapons, and armor that could protect against almost any attack. But more importantly, they were learning human military doctrine adapted for galactic warfare. Meanwhile, Commander Alex Turner was leading special operations, missions against remaining Zephyrian strongholds throughout the galaxy. His teams had become legends among both human and alien species, shadows who could penetrate any facility and eliminate any target. "Intelligence indicates there is a Zephyrian research facility on the moon of Titan 7, Alex briefed his team, before their latest mission. "They are experimenting on captured beings from 12 different species. Our job is to shut them down and free the prisoners." The mission was typical of human special operations, fast, precise, and devastating. Alex's team infiltrated the facility, disabled its defenses, and eliminated the Zephyrian researchers before they even knew they were under attack. The freed prisoners, representing species from across the galaxy, looked at their human rescuers with wonder and gratitude. But the most important development was happening in Earth's diplomatic corps. Colonel Ryan Peters, now Secretary of Galactic Affairs, was establishing contact with species that had been hiding from the Zephyrians for decades. "The key difference between us and the Zephyrians," Ryan explained to a gathering of alien ambassadors, "is that we do not want to control you. We want to help you defend yourselves." This approach was revolutionary in galactic politics. Every other advanced species that offered protection did so in exchange for resources, territory, or servitude. Humanity was the first to offer genuine partnership with no strings attached. The test of humanity's new role came when the Zephyrian home fleet finally arrived at Earth. High Counselor Velnara, who had survived the first battle, led a massive armada of over 300 ships to reclaim what they considered their rightful harvest world. Admiral Morrison was ready for them. "All ships, this is Admiral Morrison," he broadcast to the Earth Defense Fleet. "The enemy outnumbers us 3-1, but they are still fighting the last war. We have spent 6 months preparing for this moment. Show them what happens when you threaten humanity's home." The battle was fought in the space between Earth and Mars, where the human fleet had been waiting in carefully prepared positions. The Zephyrians expected to face the same primitive resistance they had encountered in their first attack, but humanity had learned and adapted. Lieutenant Sarah Brooks, now a squadron commander, led her fighters in a coordinated attack against the enemy flagship. "Remember," she told her pilots, "these ships are designed to harvest planets, not fight wars. Hit their harvesting equipment first, then target their engines." The human strategy was brilliant in its simplicity. Instead of trying to destroy the massive Zephyrian ships directly, they targeted the systems that made those ships useful for their intended purpose. Without their harvesting equipment, the alien vessels were just large, slow targets. Dr. Ford's biological weapons had been improved over the past 6 months. When they were deployed against the Zephyrian fleet, the effect was immediate and devastating. The aliens' telepathic coordination collapsed completely, leaving individual ships vulnerable to concentrated human attacks. High Counselor Velnara watched in horror as his mighty fleet was systematically destroyed by what he had believed to be a primitive species. In desperation, he sent a final message to the human fleet. "We surrender," the message said. "We did not understand what you were. Please spare the remaining ships." Admiral Morrison's response was broadcast throughout the galaxy. "We are humans. We are the species that every other creature on our home planet learned to fear. You made the mistake of threatening our world and our people. Your surrender is accepted, but understand this. If any Zephyrian ship approaches Earth again, it will be destroyed without warning." But humanity's victory was not just military. As news of the battle spread throughout the galaxy, species that had been hiding from the Zephyrians for decades began reaching out to Earth. They wanted to know more about these humans who had defeated the galaxy's most feared harvest species. A year later, Admiral Morrison stood in the same place where he had first seen the Zephyrian ships appear over Earth. But now, the sky was filled with ships from dozens of different species, all coming to Earth to join what was being called the Galactic Freedom Alliance. Dr. Ford approached him with a datapad containing the latest reports from restoration worlds. "Xerion is showing new plant growth for the first time in 15 years, she reported. "The Talari will be able to return to the surface within 2 years." General Sullivan joined them, carrying news of the latest military developments. "We have requests for training assistance from 47 different species. Everyone wants to learn human military tactics." Commander Turner had just returned from another rescue mission. "We freed 800 prisoners from a Zephyrian facility in the Vega system," he reported. "Intel suggests there are at least 30 more facilities to hit." Secretary Peters brought diplomatic news. "The Andromedan Council has officially recognized Earth as a major galactic power. They want to establish an embassy here." As the reports continued, Jake Morrison reflected on how much had changed since that morning when alien ships had first appeared over Earth. Humanity had gone from being potential victims to being the galaxy's protectors in less than 2 years. A young reporter approached the group of leaders. "Admiral Morrison, how does it feel to know that humanity is now considered the most powerful military force in the galaxy?" Jake considered the question carefully before answering. "Power is not about having the biggest ships or the most advanced weapons," he said. "Real power comes from being willing to use your strength to protect those who cannot protect themselves. The Zephyrians had advanced technology, but they used it to prey on weaker species. Humans use our strength to help others become stronger." The reporter asked a follow-up question. "Some alien species are calling humans the new guardians of the galaxy. How do you respond to that?" Admiral Morrison looked up at the ships from dozens of different species orbiting Earth. Species that were no longer hiding in fear, but were working together to build a better galaxy. "We are not guardians," he said finally. "Guardians protect people by keeping them safe but dependent. We are teachers. We teach species how to protect themselves. We share our knowledge, our technology, and our experience so that everyone can be strong enough to defend their own worlds." He paused and smiled, the same smile he had worn when he first realized that the Zephyrians were not what they claimed to be. "The Zephyrians made one final mistake when they chose Earth as their target," Jake continued.